Welcome to the DSEF. The Direct Selling Executives Forum was created to be a place where real direct selling executives and vendors in the space can come out and share solutions to challenges that face us all in the marketplace. Our guest today is going to be unpacking a topic and sharing their raw thoughts for you to learn from. All right, let's go meet our guest. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of our Women in Leadership Forum with the Direct Selling Executives Forum. We're going to have Omar Qureshi host our episode today. But before we get started, for those of you that are new to the DSEF, if you've seen the intro reel, definitely apply. It's absolutely free to join. You can fill out your application to the invite-only community and get your spot. I did want to give you some background on our guest today. So I actually ran into Erin McGinnis, over 10 years ago, which is just kind of crazy.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And for those of you who haven't met Erin before, she is a seasoned professional with over a decade of experience in the direct selling space. She's renowned for expertise in building robust compliance departments, which is exactly why we invited her to speak today, right? That seamlessly collaborate with the sales team, right? Sales shouldn't be rolling their eyes when it comes to compliance, right? It should be like a good partnership, which is why Erin's good at. She has a particular affinity to working with CBD retailers and actively manages IntegriShield's membership with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, advocating for CBD regulation. Capitol Hill during her visits to D.C., recognizing the significance of gaining insight in various aspects of the industry. Erin has also excelled at project management, sales support, and operational roles. And that's honestly one of the main reasons I want Erin to speak, is because salespeople love Erin, and that's really important when we talk about these topics today. So we are unpacking best practices for hiring a compliance officer. And Omar, the show is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A very warm welcome, Erin, for joining us today on our DSEF podcast. Well, the first question I have for you, panel, is you have served over the last 15 years as a compliance officer in 4 separate different selling companies. Let's unpack the qualities you believe a team should be looking for when hiring a compliance officer.
Well, first, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Ben for that warm welcome. That was incredible. It makes me want to go and update my bio even more. So thank you for those kind words. To get to it with compliance, it can be tricky. There's a lot of stereotypes I think people take into the space when we start talking about compliance, and especially in the direct selling industry. We are a unique department. So your compliance employees are the ones that really are in the trenches and are relaying what they see out there in the wild west of the internet to the company. They're taking that message and repeating it back to what's going on. So when you're looking for somebody to fill that role, very specific traits you want to take a look at. And you want to take your time and find somebody who's a really great fit, understands the culture of the company, and some of the things to look for when you are going down that route with HR and trying to find somebody who can protect your brand is really protect the company while also keeping the door open for future conversation with affiliates. So when somebody goes to compliance, and if they've never spoken to a compliance person before, let's say it's their first year in direct selling, they're new, they've made a mistake and they've used another brand's intellectual property to promote your brand's property, that can be an intense call when compliance reaches out and says, hey, we need you to redo this, take this down. We don't want to take the wind out of their sails.
Yeah.
But we also, number one, really want to protect the company. So the best way to do that, I found, is really just let them talk, let them speak, let that person explain to your compliance officer why they did what they did. So that way you can better support them, whether it's your compliance taking the message to marketing, saying, hey, we're starting to see a pattern of things. This is why they're developing it. What can we do to fulfill that void so they can just use what we're giving them, so we don't have to worry about that compliance concern. So you really want someone who can listen, but somebody who can also pays attention to detail and is very detail oriented as well. So compliance, as I just mentioned, they're going to be speaking not just with affiliates, but also internal department heads, like your marketing department, your sales. So this compliance officer really needs to be somebody who can gauge how to communicate, whether it's really pushing and showing examples of, no, here's why we need to update this policy. Here's why we need to implement this, and understanding that that's a battle that maybe they need to bring more information in, that they need to keep pushing and explaining to find a good solid medium, or they need to understand that, maybe this isn't something we need to worry about right now, or there are other avenues we can go down. So you need somebody who's well-rounded, who can speak, who can collaborate, but who can also really listen to figure out what a good strategy would be to get that compliance message across with that spoonful of sugar. So collaboration is a very big trait when looking for somebody to fill that role. And also to get buy-in, to be creative. Somebody who can think outside the box. I've joked before that the way I stay sane and the way I like to just be a well-rounded person and balanced is by painting and doing abstract painting. So I'm very detail-oriented at work, but then I let loose and get a little crazy and stay balanced by abstract painting and not worrying about the detail in the evenings and the weekends. I joke about that, but in all seriousness, that is a great trait for a compliance officer, somebody who is well-rounded, who can also be very abstract and think outside the box, but is also very detail-oriented. So I think to sum up all of those points on that question is really somebody who is patient. So somebody who can listen, who can also knows what questions to ask. Somebody who's collaborative, but also can hold their own in a conversation. Somebody who's detailed, but can also get abstract and have some fun and think outside the box. So somebody who's very balanced, because you have to have a little bit of all of that, because compliance touches so many different departments. I mean, every department.
You're like describing the perfect mom. Is what I'm hearing. This is kind of like I know we each had our own mothers, so I don't mean to mess that up, but like as I'm hearing Erin talk, it's like the culture code. So they're protecting the company, right? While at the same time setting proper expectations. Like this person's not a pushover in compliance at all. They're like, no, we need to do something about that. But the collaboration note is such a great note, Erin, because you hear about all kinds of opportunities as a compliance officer for marketing, for sales to do things great. When we see people in the field sharing a certain way or saying a certain thing, those can very rightfully be opportunities for marketing to go create and model appropriate ways to share, right? Appropriate ways to have the content is, hey, people want to, there's certain like direct selling companies that share quite a bit around events. So that if you have like holidays and such, so if you're a party plan company, you're sharing around events, you may say, oh, wow, we got a lot of people, making their own materials around this World Series. Oh no, they're using the sports team's logo and you can't do that. Right. How do we do that? Oh, we're the Super Bowl's coming up and they want to share our content and brand with, this NFL logo. I can't do that. But how can you create, I have clients who sell foods in the party plan space. And guess what? They do stuff about the big game, right? They create all these memes about the big game food and the big game. And they don't use the word Super Bowl. They don't show NFL logos. So it just feeds right into what you were explaining. And I think it's really good for people to hear that is sometimes you'll see stuff that are just opportunities for like, oh my gosh, if our marketing or sales team just modeled the appropriate behavior here, people want to use it because they're trying to promote their products with the Super Bowl, right? Or whatever that is. You're going to, just as an example of where that plays out in real life, the note on being patient. They're your points. They are great. I love it. I was writing your note. The patience part, really important. There's a certain humility in believing that, like, no, if that's worth it. There's a certain humility in believing that it's worth it to take your time with each relationship and each person. That's a very special quality in hiring the right compliance officer, is someone who doesn't believe, this is such a such a slog, but who is like, no, if I take my time with this person and set the arrow straight, this person will be a force for good for a really long time. And having the heart to truly believe that is a key quality. in that person.
Absolutely.
When you mentioned that, you remind me there was a situation when I was in-house compliance, when I spoke to somebody who recorded a 45-minute video because they felt the product had healed, treated, or cured. I don't remember the specifics. It's been a few years. It basically changed their child's life. They were able to focus in school. They had more focus. There were lots of medical claims in that video. And so we really, to the point where the video there wasn't a way to edit it. It was so just throughout this 45-minute video, and it had to come down. But I knew before I called her, I went into it and I'm like, I'm going to speak to this child's mom, who is so pumped about the company, who's so excited about what the product has done for her child. It's personal to her. And so I remembered that. But obviously my number one goal is protect the company, but also I'd like to set a personal goal of keep her wind in her sails, allow her to go end the call and say, you know what, they really are excited about my investment in their company. They've taken this time to personally reach out, allowing that to be a positive message for her. So she feels good that the company saw that and wants to make sure she's set up for long-term success. So that's kind of the vibe that in that specific situation that I took, and that I think if you're looking to fulfill a compliance officer space, that you should look for that trait in somebody that's going to have that creativeness to reach out to them to say, you know, we see that you're so dedicated and we're really excited that you're on board. There are some things that stood out here. And so we want to hear you. We want you to have this time and just let them take 30 minutes, let them speak and explain why they did the video, and then let them feel good and know that they're going to be a main topic of conversation in your next meeting with marketing, to say, you've given this company such great ideas on what we can give you that's going to be compliant, that's going to support long-term success. Allow them to feel special to be a part of that. And I think when you approach it in that way, you, number one, you protect the company, but you also are supportive with them, so they feel good about it. They don't go, I was just told no, and that's it. There's an explanation, there's a why, and there's a show of interest in that person. So you turn it around to a feel-good moment instead of I just wasted forever creating this YouTube video.
Well, and you agree. I mean, everyone wants to be agreed with at the end of the day. Everyone,
right?
We all feel better. Like Omar feels better when I agree, and you feel better. Erin feels better when you agree. So that moment of like listening gives you a chance to be like, oh wow, I see why you made the video. Then that was miraculous. Like you had a miraculous experience with your son. Now you know we can't say all that stuff on social media. So we could think about how we could say that story in a compliant way. That would be pretty powerful, you know. So it gives you a moment to react in agreement, which is always a win for the energy, even when you're like, so we can't say some of those things, even though that's phenomenal. Holy cow, congratulations to your family. You know, like that, it gives you that creativity if you guys feel that energy the way Erin's saying. That's super important. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, such a great insight, Erin. Thank you very much. Well, speaking about all these experiences, another question I have, what pitfalls have you seen companies run into when hiring a compliance officer? I know you just explained one, you know, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say that's such a great question, because I think compliance can be so underutilized when there's so much more, you know, even what we just touched on. Compliance C is the I of marketing. Use that. Listen to them, invite them to meetings. Don't let them be the quiet, like, it's compliance. We'll let them play with policy in isolation. Include them in strategy meetings, marketing meetings, because they're seeing a lot of stuff that can benefit all of these other departments, whether it's even commissions. How are they talking about income? Is there something that needs to be addressed? That's such an important tool to use. So compliance can be so much more for you if you allow it. I've seen companies hire compliance officers who are not strong communicators. Specifically, I think there are times where it's like, all right, we need to have compliance, but we also, there's a concern and a misunderstanding that compliance can hinder sales. So we want them to be seen but not heard. I've heard that said before. And so I think when you're looking for somebody, allow it to be somebody who is a good communicator, who can listen and see that, but can also communicate and work through that stereotype with you. So you are using compliance in a way that, you feel comfortable inviting them to your marketing strategy meetings, to your sales meetings, so that way they can help, and they're not afraid to come out and to say, hey, I'm seeing people create this because of this. Sales, what do you think? What can we do to help them? Give them a tool. Do you guys have ideas? So there's so much more you can get out of it. Creativity. I think that'll probably be a pattern on this call, because I think when you've got somebody in this compliance officer role that can think outside the box, find good solutions. I loved what you said, Ben, about football. I think, you can't say Super Bowl, you can't use the Super Bowl logo, but you can talk about being game day and use football and have fun. There's creative ways to get the same message out without it being a liability. So creativity is key.
Especially with holidays today, Turkey Day, like here we are, it's all that stuff. You got to do it. Yeah.
And culture, make sure that I think it can be a pitfall when you've brought somebody on board in compliance and they're not embraced in the culture. I heard an attorney once on stage say, bring your compliance people to fun events, take them on the cruises, allow them to get to know the field. So that way, when they're out there, it's not just a negative. A company I was with, we did end of the month where everybody stayed in the office until midnight, just encouraging sales and affiliates there for them to make sure that they're reaching their goals. And compliance didn't have to be there, because there really wasn't anything we could do until the next day. But I still went because I wanted to, message our people on Facebook, call them, send them texts, say, hey, I know you just spoke to sales right now, but I heard you're super close to your goal. What can I do to help you? That way it's a positive, not just a negative when they reach out. So somebody who's willing to be part of that culture. And that does go both ways. You want somebody in the position who's going to just seek that and to be actively engaged, but the company needs to as well. And I think it's a pitfall when compliance is not embraced. And and I've touched on this one too. Pay attention to your compliance officer's feedback, because they are in the trenches. They do see it. Allow that to be something of value to your company and to your marketing and sales teams.
See the damage in just the opposite question of pitfalls. So as Erin's sharing this, like if you have someone who's not creative, you have someone who is not collaborative with sales, you have someone who is not willing to listen or communicate clearly. Holy cow! That you would take all the wind out of the sails of fun, creative, volunteer salespeople who are doing this thing. If you think about the elements of like our ideal ambassador or consultant, representative, influencer, whatever you're calling them in your business, you think about like who's going to keep us safe while adding wind to the sails, not keep us safe with like them questioning if they're safe promoting us versus promoting someone else. I mean, the worst result from, as you're hearing Erin saying, of the counters here, gang, is you have someone who like responds in a way where your salespeople are like, I don't know if I can do business with your organization. Like that's like the opposite. It's like, how do we stay safe and promote and model appropriate behavior where good people know that they can build a career here long term? Now, I mean, of course, there's bad actors that we just want them to move on by, right? There's, of course, bad actors in the field, and that's fine. I'm not talking about keeping the bad actors around, but really hear that part as you're listening to the stream today, or whether you're on Spotify. Like, it just check that out, because that's going to be a big deal difference, and so that's all good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great insight, Erin. Thank you very much. How do you believe compliance should be positioned to the field these days?
I touched on that.
Social media is such a hot topic. We've got AI. There are states that are evaluating, should minors even have access without parents? There's a lot invested in the regulatory world in social media right now. And let's face it, with direct selling, we are social media monitors. And direct selling, that is what compliance really ultimately takes up a big chunk of our time, is monitoring that and seeing what's being said on social media. So how do I believe compliance should be positioned to the field these days? I think compliance should be positioned in a way that lets the field know we're here to protect. We've seen, when it comes to regulation, we've seen precedents now that courts are not just going after companies, they're going after affiliates as well. People who are 1099 contractors building their business. When they're in that position, you have to understand the policies and the guidelines that go with owning that position. And what compliance is, it's your cheat sheet. We're here to help you. We're here to say, hey, this post might get you in trouble with the FDA. We're claiming that this product is going to cure cancer. It's not medicine. It hasn't been approved as a cancer cure or medication. So this is something that could hinder your business that you're working so hard to build. So I think when you position compliance as a help, as somebody who's looking out, not for the company, because I receive feedback from so many affiliates that they think compliance is there just to protect the company. It's there to protect everybody's long-term success, the companies, the affiliates. Nobody wants to lose that opportunity. So when you position compliance as the heroes, the I for affiliates, as the I for the company, for everybody, not just internal, external, to make sure that that company is around long term and we're investing in our field, we're investing in the marketing. Let them know, say, hey, compliance is out there seeing what's going on. If there's any liabilities, not just to say no, but they want to hear that because they want to take it back to us in our meetings and learn if we need to build a different tool, if there's a pattern or something. That compliance is there to serve your growing business, to make sure that you're doing it the right way. And I think when you present compliance to the field in that fashion, that's what their role is, to protect the company, to protect your business, but also to make sure that you're doing things right. And that if there's something you need, we can help you with that. We're service department as well. Take your, I feel like I need to say this twice, take your compliance people on incentive trips. Allow them to be positive, invest in allowing them to build the positive relationships with the field, along with the calls, the tough calls. So that way, when the tough calls come along, you're not just hearing that side from them, but you know that they're invested in understanding your experience while building, so they can make sure you have everything you need to do it right. And I think when you pitch compliance as the heroes there, and that they're there to help you, it takes away some of that stereotype and that stigma that compliance is just going to say no.
You know what's really good about what you've shared, Erin, that I think is just important as we go through this idea of positioning. It's like there's like psychology in the theory of common enemy, and there's this, and so like the common enemy is like the, you know, this boogeyman rogue distributor that doesn't give a rip and is going to come join your direct selling company and just do horrible, distasteful things with the brand, and it's going to cause very distasteful YouTube videos and everything else to be put all over every time someone Googles it. And it's just going to bring shame instead of the goodness of everything that we're building in that company. So like there's this common enemy part. That's a little bit of the psychology just shared in the positioning. But that protecting for the long-term future, that's the core message that I love out of that is, can we position the compliance department in a way where they see that team as, hey, these are the people that are making sure our check stays along for a long time, because they're making sure we're all doing it right. And we're all need to be on the lookout for compliance, because it's all of our job to protect it. And compliance isn't a weird thing or a gossipy thing. It's us protecting the future. And doing that well is tricky, but you've given us some really good pointers to do that today. And so I think that's just important for everyone to hear, is sometimes you can have a narrative as a team that's really good around this common enemy of the rogue, crazy person, right? Of like, not singling out a single person, but hey, we want to protect ourselves, because some people have that in their history. You know, they've been able to build their whole compliance story around, hey, remember in 2006 when that horrible thing happened, right? We don't ever want that to happen again. So let's all make sure we help each other out and build a great story. It's helpful It really is, to have that mission be clear of, hey, we're keeping us all safe together. It's good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. The last question I have for you, Erin, is if you had one thought you want to leave us, everyone with, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. When you think of compliance and you think of the economy, immediately I think of ROI, return on investment. You know, it always comes down to money. So I think when it comes to compliance, depending on your stage in life as a brand, you may consider an alternative. Check out a monitoring firm like IntegriShield. And, you know, as Ben said, in all transparency, I do work with an incredible team at IntegriShield. And that route might be better for some people, depending on where your company is at. Map out also what a win looks like for your compliance team. When I was in-house doing compliance, I really had to get creative to find wins, because usually you're telling people, hey, you know, we need to work with this, you're resolving, getting things taken down. So really have that conversation with your compliance department. If you're an E-suite or a C-suite executive, talk to them and look at what all of their tasks are and find exciting ways to give them wins too. I think that keeps things going, that allows them to get creative. And lastly, I think just remember that compliance is here to protect your business and marketing efforts. Everybody gets excited about a new video. Remember that compliance is part of protecting that new video. They're your protectors. So that's a positive, good thing. Embrace the department. Encourage that position to be viewed as a valuable collaborator, and make sure when you're filling that position that that person's also going to be a good communicator and a collaborator as well. So that way it fits, you know, on both terms. So I think those are the big things that I'd love to leave everybody with. Use compliance. I think the biggest thing is I see compliance so underutilized, and there's so much more value they can add. And I get excited to think about that, because, you know, they're your eyes and ears for marketing tools, for sales, for customer service. There's so many messages they could relay of what they're seeing to help customer service. So I would say use them and love them.
You know, Erin, it's such a cool picture you're communicating, because if we think about a healthy company in referral marketing that's doing big things, and then we say, what does the ideal team look like department-wise to run that company? There isn't one of us on this line that would not have a compliance department. Like, I can't imagine any of the executives on the line being like, well, my goal is to create a culture of a company that's so strong and successful that it doesn't need a compliance department. Like, no, compliance department's a feedback loop. It's protection. It's wise stewardship over the opportunity. It's all these things you talk about. And what I loved about the color you added today is we talked about how a company's culture could, you know, the compliance doesn't need to miss out on the fun and the culture and everything else that a company has in creating, you know, their organization. You know, many times these very successful direct selling companies that we all work with, right, have really strong personalities on their executive team of people that they exude the culture of the company. You know, I'm having a fantastic day, you know, and it's all that stuff that we have in our world. It's a good reminder of saying, hey, let's not leave out the compliance part. Like, let's hire the same kinds of A players in compliance culturally that we would as a field director, or as we would as a head of sales, or as we would as a, you know, a head of ops. And that's a really great reminder. Really very much. Very appreciated.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you for inviting me on here. This has been a blast. I've enjoyed it.
Omar, thank you for hosting our call today. It was a total treat to be on.
Thank you, Erin.
And as Erin alluded, her current role is at IntegriShield, one of the providers here in our space for software and tools. That is a good tip to also say, whether it's kind of a key theme if you go to previous episodes, whether you hire someone for sales, or you hire someone in marketing, or you hire someone in compliance, you need to equip them as well. So no matter what department you're hiring in, you want to equip those people for success with what their playbook will be. With that, we want to thank you for being out here today. It was a total treat to have you on. Have an amazing week, and we'll talk with you all soon. Bye for now.
Thank you both so much.
If you haven't yet joined the DSEF group on LinkedIn, go to directSellingExecutiveForum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to apply. The group is free and is an invite-only community of direct selling executives by direct selling executives.